Oh man, so we're live, and this is the Wild Theology podcast. I'm Phil Wyman, and hopefully some of you will start tuning into it live in a few moments, and it will also be able to be caught afterwards on Facebook and YouTube. But today I am with Dan and Kristy Pattimore, who are from Penrith in northern England, Cumbria, and they are near Appleby-in-Westmoreland, which is where the Appleby Hrose Fair should be happening right about now. I met them a year ago, and so I'm going to bring them on right now. Here they are. This is Kristy and Dan, and we're going to talk a little bit about what's happening in your world right now. I mean, the whole wide world is in a weird place right now.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's strange times, very strange times.
Yeah. And so we'll talk a little bit about that and how you are navigating that particular dynamic. Sorry, here I'm loading some things myself on my own phone so I can watch this while we so I can watch it on the side while we talk about it, and it's delayed quite a bit from what we're experiencing in the studio. So we met about a year ago.
We did,
and I had perhaps the most horrendous experience in traveling just to get there. On that, I left Pontypridd in South Wales, staying with my friends Andrew and Don in Pontypridd, and I grabbed a bus that took me. I don't know where I went from where to where, but it was a bus to a train to another train, and at some point I got delayed on the buses, and then I missed the last train going out of, would it be York? Going up your...
Yeah, we missed that as well.
And so I missed the last one going out of town north, so I had to wait all night. And then in the morning, the machine ate my money. And I had to wait. I had to wait another hour, so I couldn't get the first train out. And the train I got on broke down. And then I had to sit and wait a couple. So I don't know. It was like 28 hours for what should have been a 5-hour drive or something, right?
Yeah.
And then I arrived to find the Appleby Hrose Fair, and I walked down the hill, and there's a bunch of people flashing, running their horses, showing them off up and down the street in the middle of a town. And I turned, and there was somebody working with the Methodist Church saying, "Well, we're offering to pray for people. Can we pray for you?" And that was you, Kristy.
It was. Yeah. I just think she was a little lazy, and I think she'd just gone off, and I turned around and I saw this little gnome-like figure in front of me.
I'm glad you said that.
Laden down with a big rucksack you had on your back, didn't you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and you said, "So which group are you with then?" And I said, "Oh, this lot here from Christians from around the town, but we're with Methodist Church, and we're just offering to pray with people." And Phil said, "Oh well, I set up teams of Christians to go to festivals," and so I said, "Oh, is that why you're here?" "Well, no, I'm just checking this out." Yeah. He said, "Yeah." And then we went and had a sit down, didn't we, and a chat. And I tried to offer you a cup of tea, but we couldn't get in the church to make us drink because the RSPCA look after the animals. We're using it as a base as well. So we sat under a little gazebo and had a long conversation. And then I said, "Where are you staying tonight?" And you said, "Well, I don't know yet." And I said, "Come and stay at our house." At which point, several Methodist ladies nearly fell off their chairs because I was inviting a stranger home.
Nevertheless, a stranger that looked like he came out of a Tolkien book.
Well, I like talking, so I thought I was.
That works.
Yeah.
And then I got a text at work saying that Kristy just sent me a text saying, "Oh, I'm bringing an American home to stay." And I was like, "Whatever, that's fine, okay." And there it was. That was great. Yeah.
I had absolutely a blast staying with you guys. You know,
Good time.
the thing I'm going to miss most is the international no rules chess competition, which I figure would be in its second year. But playing chess with the kids, you know, and we at some point we just changed the rules and made it up as we wanted to. It was, you know, I think they must be the consummate young postmodernists because they just, you know, deconstructed and reconstructed chess on the fly.
Well, I left the room and you were playing ordinary chess with the kids, and or with one of the kids, because
Right.
people. And then I came back and you were all crowded around the table playing no rules chess. And I mentioned to my daughter, who's 13, earlier, said, we're going to be talking to Phil later. Oh yeah, she actually said, I like Phil. And do you remember the chess game? Oh yes.
That was the most fun I'd had, I think, in the whole trip. It was,
As long as it's better than the 20-hour nightmare, that's the
yeah. Well, you know, it makes for a great story, so that's okay to travel. It works like that. So here you are in fairly rural northern England.
Yeah.
In the Dales, right?
Just between the Dales and the Fells, yeah.
Okay.
The Eden Valley, which sounds quite beautiful, doesn't it? And actually is. So that's pretty good.
It is. It's absolutely. It sounds like it looks. Yeah, it's a beautiful place. But you were telling me when we talked the other day that you're actually in an area that has a fairly high concentration of people who've tested positive for COVID-19.
Yeah. It's what we found, which is a big surprise to us, because we're about as far away from London as you can get in England, and yet when London's infection was exponential and going crazy, ours was as well, and we just, no one could quite figure out why that was. We do have some areas of quite high deprivation in the county, although it's very rural. There are sort of concentrated pockets of people. But yeah, we had the highest rate outside London, and then London went down. We've got the highest rate at the moment still. I think, I don't know what it's like over in the States, but here they keep going on about the R value. So the R value is the rate at which it transmits. So if it's below 1, where each person will infect less than one other person on average, obviously the rate goes down. And if above 1, it goes off like a skyrocket. And we're just over 1 still at the moment. So everyone's sort of thinking, well, what's going to happen? Are we going to go back into a strict lockdown? Because we started taking steps out of that. So yeah, it's interesting times. Some of the schools are seeing some of the kids, but not many.
Yeah. And the alarming thing is that the government are making those kind of plans to open up the economy and open up schools. It feels to us in the north a bit based around London.
Very much based
figures,
around
really.
London.
So we get that, you know, in London that probably makes sense right now. Up here, not so sure. And there's a lot of doubt about that. Having said that, our youngest has gone back to school. But then we're in a tiny village school. And so at the moment, because some kids haven't come back, and it's just his age group that have gone back, 10 and 11-year-olds, he's
one of 3.
One of 3.
So it's pretty.
So he's having some fun there.
Yeah. He was ready to go back though. He was like chewing his arms off. He was desperate to get out of the house, I suppose, really. We've been sort of locked down for 3 months now.
11 weeks.
Yeah, again, only 3 months. And it's quite a toll on the kids. It's quite a toll on the adults, but the kids really suffer with that, I think. And he's ready to go back. So he's really enjoyed the last couple of days.
But the 2 teenagers are still home.
Yeah, 2 teenagers are home.
So one of the benefits of coronavirus is kids will now appreciate school.
Yeah. Yeah.
They can't wait to go back.
Well, Karen's our daughter's desperate to go back, and she did say, I just want to go back to school. And I said, I will remind you of that, Karen, in a year's time when you're complaining about going to school, that you just love school and you want to be back.
Right. So Dot Gosling is watching right now.
Hello, Dot.
Yeah, that's good to see. With this quarantine, how strict has it been? What kind of things have been open? What kind of things closed? Here in Southern California, what we've got going is, obviously grocery stores and necessary health services. Didn't include dentists. Those things were open except for the dentists, like I said, and just recently restaurants are now open. Before they could only have takeaway and delivery, but now here in LA County, you can go into a restaurant, but the restaurants have pretty strict guidelines, and so your server will have a mask and a face shield as well,
really?
and gloves, all of that, and obviously you can't wear a mask and eat or drink, so that's not required, but the placement of the tables is further apart, and that just happened in the last week and a half. What are things like where you are?
Well, we've been the same as you in terms of it's just been the grocery stores and the like pharmacies and hospitals and whatever open.
Dentists are only just thinking about opening up again, but again they've got to get all the PPE in place as well, because one of the things about a dentist is that the high-speed drill produces this aerosol effect. So if someone's got the virus, it's the most contaminating it can be. So they're all a bit sort of about it, and really saying that only come in if you are in pain or it's an emergency. Don't even begin to think about routine stuff. It's not going to happen.
Okay.
But our non-essential shops are only opening up. Was it next week for some of them?
Yeah.
And they're talking about pubs and restaurants
possibly
early July.
Yeah.
But that seems very tentative at the moment, I think. But they're desperate to get them open.
Well, they are, but it's a case of us saying that in order to make it viable, a 2-meter distance in a small pub just not going to get people in. So I was watching a thing on the news actually today. It was a president of the pub association or whatever it's called was saying that we need to have the social distancing rules reduced down to 1 meter in order to make it viable, which you can understand. But on the other hand, it's like, but then that pushes up the possible rate of infection. And like you say, you can't exactly wear a mask and have a pint, can you? So it doesn't quite work. You have a straw, I suppose, or something. I don't know. But no, it's that balancing act. Where do you go with that? And I was just saying to Kristy, I've been working through all of this as a security guard at Centre Park, which people don't know is a sort of a large holiday park thing. We have about 5,000 guests on site when they're full normally. And that closed down straight away with the lockdown, still closed down, and at the moment they're saying will be closed down till mid-July. And I don't know what I'm saying now. What we just I've got me sidetracked.
No, I can't remember.
No, never mind. But somebody will remember, I'm sure. What was it to do with?
To do with places opening up and not opening up.
But I've been working through there as well. And I'll talk about the distances. And so the distance should be 2 meters, but what I've noticed among staff is that the task force that have been on site to keep it going is that we're 2 meters apart, and then that 2 meters gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So I reckon if they said in pubs, it's 1 meter, well, it's not going to be anything at all. So you just got to sort of be wary about that. I think most of 2 meters is not 2 meters.
2 meters is an impossibility in a lot of small pubs, obviously, like you were mentioning, which then would leave the only people who survive are like Weatherspoons.
Yeah.
Because they're already larger, right?
Yeah.
And so that would be it'd be hard. It's hard to imagine the UK without its small local pubs.
Yeah. And a lot of them really are struggling.
Right.
And a lot of them were under pressure anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, the pub trade has struggled in recent years.
Yeah. So a friend of mine, a writer that I met at the Hay Book Festival, the literary festival. Kath Barton, she just wrote that in Wales the lockdown's even tighter than in England. And not supposed to travel further than 5 miles to meet friends and family.
That's right. That's right.
Which is a very rural area. I mean, what do you do?
Yeah.
Yeah. In some places, the nearest house isn't 5 miles. Or at least that's how it feels, right?
Yeah. One of the issues we had with with the lifting of the lockdown in England was Boris Johnson announcing that people could travel as far as they liked for exercise or leisure, which caused big problems for places like Cumbria and seaside resorts and places like that, because everybody the weather's been glorious here as well. It's only just gone a bit more dull this week, but everybody just wanted to go to the countryside, which is understandable.
Right.
But they weren't just necessarily going to their nearest countryside. They were going to the really pretty spots, which meant that they've just been overwhelmed.
And so the people living there were just basically under siege conditions. So they couldn't go out, ironically. They'd be sort of hiding inside the houses. With people roaming about the village, And there were other issues as well. Things like, for example, that there were no public toilets open. So people just had to make their own arrangements. Which wasn't very pleasant for the local people again, and so that has caused some problems. I know over in France they said there was I can't remember how many miles it was, or kilometres in France, but there's a limit how far you could go, and we were just scratching our heads thinking, well, why didn't we just have something like that? If we just said you can only travel, I don't know, 25 miles, 30 miles, so you can get out of London, you'd have a vast area that you could actually go and visit, but it just seemed like a lot of people from the big cities around here, particularly Manchester and Liverpool, just descended on the Lake District, and it was just, To be fair about that, Cumbria is kind of split in two. You've got the lakes and the mountains on one side, and then you've got sort of the fells and sort of dales on the other.
Right.
And we're on that less popular side, so it didn't affect us quite so much. There was a lot of traffic on the roads. But seeing the photographs of some of the places, it's just nuts. And then, of course, people leave all the trash behind and go home. And then it's like, well, who's going to clean that up then? The rubbish fairies, it's just crazy.
Yeah. So it sounds like you have this split population, I think somewhat like we do in the United States. Some of the people are just tired of this, and they think it's overdone, and they want to get out and do things. So about 3 weeks ago, the beaches in Orange County, just south of LA, opened up. And so it hit international news that everybody went to Huntington Beach. And you had these pictures of people walking through town down to the pier, and very few people, it appeared, were wearing masks. And when you got onto the beach, they had the little groups they were in, but it's a very large beach, as big as it is, it still looked very crowded, and like few people were keeping any kind of social distancing rules.
Yeah. I mean, it's a similar thing with the beaches over here as well. Although I think over in the States, you've got a thing about, have you got to wear masks if you go into shops or something like that?
Yes, yeah.
Well, we haven't got that here. I mean, the most they've said is, you can wear masks if you want to.
Right.
Which is nice. Or if you're on public transport now, I think you have to wear a mask of some kind, or a face covering.
From next Monday.
Oh yeah, from next Monday. That was right. Yeah, they said from the 15th of June.
I saw that news.
Fine. Perfectly safe without masks until the 15th of June.
Yeah, I saw that news. For us, it's probably dependent upon state and even county and city rules. But here in LA County, when you walk up to a store, everybo's got a sign that says "No mask, no service." Or or no entry, something like that.
That's insensible,
Yeah. And it's not like all the store owners appreciate that. I walked down to Eddie's Market on the corner, and I know Eddie. And he just shakes his head and says, "I'm getting tired of this." And Eddie and I have a similar problem. That is, I feel like I'm suffocating in a mask, and on a hot day, I just feel tormented by it. But I know it all makes sense. So I keep the rule and I stick my mask on my face.
Yeah.
I haven't worn my my plague doctor mask yet outside. I need to do that.
Have you got one of those?
Do you?
No.
I do. Yeah. Oh, definitely. I got a plague doctor mask. Yeah. I mean, I think we all need to gear up for real here.
Yeah.
Oh
yes, I love
that. This is styling. This is the way to go out. Yeah. If you haven't seen it, I've got a Plague Doctor song called the Plague Doctor Strut.
Oh dear. Can you sing it while you've got the mask on, or is that?
Because I've been muffled.
I did perform it once with the mask on, yeah. But it gets fogged up. So in the middle of all this, some of the people who are watching, John Robinson, I don't know if he's still there, jumped on for a bit. He's in North Wales toward the Carnarvon area, and he's an American missionary who's working specifically with minority language groups, and so he's a fluent Welsh speaker from, I think, Kentucky, Kentucky, Tennessee. Anyway, there's a lot of people who, some people have thrived in terms of ministry in the middle of all of this, and other people are struggling. What do I do? I can't get out and do the things I normally do. I've watched some of the things you've done, and I've been impressed by it. So, what's been your attitude through this in terms of just keeping ministry alive?
Well, a lot of the things that we do involve fairly small numbers of people, small groups, because that's kind of how we like to operate. It's how we find things kind of naturally develop, and people can relate more. It's much more about relational stuff. And a lot of that we've just kind of carried on as far as we can over social media, with like Zoom meetings and things like that. But not, as I say, Zoom meetings. More, I don't say meetings. That doesn't make it sound a little bit formal, but just getting together online and chatting and praying together. You started up this sort of WhatsApp sort of Bible reading group that a whole bunch of folk are involved in now. So
that's evolved, the WhatsApp group, hasn't it? Because it started to be about let's pray together, and then they started feeding their prayer requests in and chatting about stuff. Then we said, well, why don't we read the Bible together as well? So we don't do it as such as a Bible study, but we're all trying to read the same chapter every day, and then if people want put comments on it or questions, we'll have a little bit of a chat about it on WhatsApp. We can do. We possibly might turn that into a weekly Zoom Bible study at some point as well. We haven't done that yet. And then we've been trying to engage a bit on Facebook Live as well, because we've kind of been involved with a local effort, combined churches working together, which has been brilliant because they're working together, doing a recorded service. But that's quite good, but it lacks the the interactive and real time thing, part of being together and worshiping. It's more like watching something on the TV, watching
it's not it's not relational. That's the issue.
So we thought, well, if with Facebook Live, at least people can put in their comments as you're talking, and also it's live. So when you do something and you make a mistake, then you just say, oh, I didn't mean to say that, and you correct what you say, and that's more how it would be in church. We don't have this totally polished thing normally. When we get every single word right. Whereas I think the temptation when you're pre-recording stuff is to think, oh, I didn't do that bit right. I'll just go over that bit, and and it becomes less authentic to me.
Right.
Plus, the fact I'm probably a bit lazy, really, and don't like doing all that editing.
Well, the thing is, we've always worked on this principle of being anti-slick. So not times I've heard it in churches. This idea that God wants excellence. He wants perfection. He wants and he wants you to give 110%, whatever that means. And so you end up in a lot of churches with the blessed people who are excellent at stuff at the front. And a whole bunch of people in the pews think, well, I'm pretty rubbish because I'm not as brilliant as you. When the reality is that the brilliant people aren't brilliant either. And that's a big frustration. The first time I really encountered this on a big scale was actually in Wales, in Aberystwyth, a lovely big church in Aberystwyth. We were doing a mission in Aberystwyth there, and I was staying with one lady, and I was just talking to her about what is it like at church, and she said, well, it's really, really good, but you just feel like you can't contribute, that you can consume and receive, but you cannot give, and she used those sorts of words. We're told that God wants excellence, but I'm not excellent. I've got my failings, I've got my past, I've got all my hang-ups. I love the Lord dearly, and I want to serve Him, but I'm just, how can I do what they do? And that really hit me, and I think that was a sort of a transformative time in my own sort of Christian life and ministry, thinking about, well, how do you allow all people, to play? Everybody gets to play. That's the thing for me.
Yeah.
So. A lot of what we do is kind of peer-to-peer. We don't set ourselves up as being the experts or the ministers or the teachers, because I have found that people have got an awful lot they got to teach me. As long as I'm open to that, and I can let go of that kind of that mantle of I am the leader, I must do it all right all the time, and that's to think, well, I know I can't, so what's the point in pretending? Then I receive, they receive, and it just becomes a much more organic, holistic kind of thing. And it's a lot more fun.
Yeah. Dot's responding to that and saying they do a Zoom and they record it as well, and so when they do post it live, it comes with all the screw ups, and they include the conversations from beginning to end. That's one of the things I've noticed. What you're talking about there hits on exactly how I've felt for the entirety of pastoring and doing ministry. I always being born on the same day as Martin Luther. I guess the concept of the priesthood of all believers is just in my DNA or something. Because I always felt like the inability to participate within a church service left Christianity somehow impotent. All we did was grow other people who could become professionals like us. Maybe we didn't bring everybody along to the party.
The chosen few might just cut it.
What you find sometimes in church is that if someone shows a bit of spark and commitment and ability, that they tend to be then pounced on, and you must be. We should send you to train for ministry, for ordained ministry. Whereas actually, as we said, everyone gets to play, so everyone should have something to contribute. Everyone should have that capacity to be committed, and we should be expecting that of people, not expecting just a special few to aspire to that.
Yeah. I think there must be something just a little bit safer for a lot of people who perhaps have been shyer in live church services, but
Yeah.
when you have these Zoom meetings and gatherings, everybody does seem to be participating, and
Yeah.
it's bringing them out a little bit. So, you know, for me, I've worked on that the entirety of my
Yeah.
life in church, is to try and make it comfortable for people to express themselves, no matter who they were and what they had to say. They didn't even have to agree with us.
Yeah.
Or me. You know, that didn't have to happen. I just wanted them to participate. That seems to be natural
Yeah.
in social media.
It is, and I think the interesting thing is as well, our Zoom meetings, gatherings we've been having, because it's on Zoom, we're not restricted by geography. So we've picked up a few people from maybe from the area, but from, you know, people that might not have come to some of our things before. And so some of them are people who we know through our pioneer church that we regularly do, but others are members of other churches maybe in the area, but who just want to get together over Zoom. And we had a conversation the other day in which some of them said, this is just brilliant. We want to carry on with this after, whether it's in this format or in a real live format, because we're able to be real with each other and say what we think. And we've ended up having some really deep conversations with each other. And I just thought, well, isn't that what church should be like anyway? She said naively, you know, and it's brilliant. I'm so pleased that they feel like that and that they're getting that out of it. But to me, that's what I would be aiming, like you're saying, that's what I'd be aiming for all the time. That everybody is able to speak up and ask the questions, or give their idea, or tease something out together. Yeah.
I mean, one of the things is as well that we've got to realise. Again, not sure what it's like over in the States, but over here, you know, we do have a bunch of folk who just don't do computers. They don't do social media. They don't do any of it, you know. And so we have been mindful of that. And in the days when you could only allowed out of your house to go and do one piece of exercise each day, we would walk round to different people's houses or cycle to people's houses. And drop through. We put together like a little rhythm of prayer for the day. So morning, noon, and night, like a comping kind of thing. And so we took those round to folk as well. So you can use this, whether they're not thinking, whether they actually can use it or not. But people have found it really useful, haven't they?
Yeah.
So that's another thing, you know, about I suppose we're being quite sort of you know, pioneering and nimble and agile and all that kind of thing, looking at church and looking for opportunities, actually to have something as simple as a written liturgy that you can engage with, you know, that others are as well, is really good. Now, to be fair, we've not really kept up with it as well as other people have. But then that's us, you know, we're not so much written liturgy people, but to think of other folk that don't do this. And as the Church of England, particularly in our area, are generally older folk, and I think there's a higher percentage of older folk who don't engage so much with social media, then that's been really important too.
Yeah. Although some of those older folk who hadn't been doing it before are doing it now.
Learning,
And some of the ones that might have possibly looked at Facebook but would never have thought of doing something like this, you know, like you know, I've learned how to use it, and we've had some fun, you know, trying to get people online and and all the rest of it. But that's been part of it, doing it together, you know.
But it's interesting. We just had someone on Facebook showed me something from one of the dioceses in England, in the Church of England, who just basically said that because of coronavirus and the ongoing decline in the Church of England, but coronavirus particularly, with the reduced level of giving, that they are going to have to reduce their number of clergy significantly. I mean, about 40%, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
35-40% of full-time paid clergy they're going to have to get rid of within the next 18 months. So that's they can't do that through retirement and natural wastage. So, and that's just one diocese. And our own bishop here, James Newcomb, he gave us a pastoral phone call a couple of days ago, and I just raised that question with him. So what's going to be happening as we come out of this? And he said, well, I'm actually on a group within the church that are looking at that, and yes, it's a challenge. He said,
Right, right.
A lot of dioceses have not got much reserve anywhere. They've been spending it for the shortfall, and this is going to hammer. So it's going to be really interesting what happens for the poor old Church of England.
Right.
Coming
Yeah,
time.
my friend in Australia, Alan Hirsch, was saying that he's predicting, as well as a number of other church leaders, that there could be as much of a 30% loss in the number of churches. Following this, and that'll be interesting to see what happens. Is it like big business where only the big survive, or is it a little bit of the reverse because the large churches have the large debt? Some of them have to close down because they haven't been able to keep up with it. Thomas Lupton is saying that grassroots churches will rise out of the ruins of the Anglican Church.
Yeah, I just read that. I think that's right. I think
it's a little bit of both of what you're saying. I think one of the things I was alarmed by in this article about this diocese was they were talking about churches that aren't able to sustain themselves financially,
right?
Being the ones to go. And I thought the shame about that. I mean, some of those churches, it may be because there's been no mission, it's dead, and all this of it. But others will be maybe in poorer areas where people can't give as much. And I felt a bit like, should we be focusing on where is our mission, or are we focusing on where there's money that we can keep a church going? So that's one thing. But I do think as well that this is an amazing opportunity if we can take it to rethink the way we do church and the way we do mission, and and actually grassroots, and small and agile. I mean, we're thinking about the things that we're doing, and a lot of the stuff we were doing pre-lockdown was not massive. It was small, little, very fragile groups where if one or two families stop coming, then you would start questioning, well, can we, are there enough people for us to keep meeting? Cards are on the table here. Who knows when we're going to come out of this? But when we do, we won't necessarily be going back to doing all the same things. Have you lost us? I can't see us anymore.
Yes. Yeah.
I can see you.
Yeah, we can see you.
Okay, I have lost you though, even in the feed here. You may have to log out and try and log back in.
Weird. Let's just do the old F5 trick and see what happens.
Oh, you know what? Even though I can't see you, you can be heard.
Yeah.
But I don't know. You've disappeared off the screen in the stream, even on the studio. Yeah. See if you can. There you are again. I can see you again. Yes.
Yeah.
Boom! It's 3, 2, 1, and bang. You're there, but the screen is frozen.
Oh, is it?
Technical difficulties.
It's okay. We're just shaking
from
nodding our heads around
Beach
here.
And Penrith.
Can you still hear us, Phil?
Is that the internet?
Okay. So while we're trying to see if we can get you going again off of this frozen state, I'm just going to make a comment to some of the people who are here. So Moon Bunny, Jim Hogue is here. He's one of my festival buddies, which is what I was going to kind of move to. Yeah, Jim, we had a little technical difficulty and they froze. And so I'm going to see if we can get them back on here. Anyway, yeah, headbangers to you. They're off for the moment. we're going to see if we can get Dan and Kristy back on in the studio. Okay.
Try scrolling down because I think
Oh,
you can.
2, 1, bang. There we go. How's that? Is that working now? Get on the phone. Do the messenger on the phone.
Now.
It's all working here. That's really weird.
Okay, so I've got your video, but it's frozen.
That's odd.
And I don't have any audio from you.
Is the audio down here?
No, it should be okay.
Oh, so this is quite strange. Because my studio is not working, but it's working on Facebook. So I'm not hearing you live.
Right.
Oh, no.
That's strange.
Bother.
Okay, I'm gonna.
Oh, no, I've lost him.
He's back.
Okay.
Is that working now? we can see you.
So here's the problem we have. Our studio is about 5 seconds ahead of what's on Facebook, and the studio's not working, but Facebook Live is. So having a conversation is nearly impossible.
No. Can you actually hear us though, Phil, now live on Be Live?
Oh,
no.
Okay.
Oh, dear.
Well, I'm still not getting you. I'm still not getting you on my studio. I'm going to try something here, and I may disappear when this happens. Okay.
Okay. Welcome.
If that happens, we'll find out what occurs.
Okay.
Actually, he's not hearing us either.
Keep moving, keep moving, keep moving.
Okay.
Keep moving, keep moving.
Can you see us or hear us?
So, Dan and Kristy, can you hear me?
I can hear. We can hear you. Yeah, no worries.
Okay.
You can't hear us.
I can see you, and now I cannot hear you.
Oh,
no! What's going on? I don't believe it.
Fun with fun with the studio. Let me try a few different things. I'm gonna because I can't hear you in the studio. It's
yeah. Just having a look. Looking for the Facebook Live thing. Can't see it. Oh, live. There we are.
Even though I can't hear you, I'm going to throw this question out to you and let you answer, and that will shake the camera. Jim says. That's not helping. So I'm going to throw the question out to you and let you answer. So you're very close to Appleby-in-Westmoreland and the Appleby Hrose Fair, which is like 20,000 English gypsies, travelers, Roma, descend upon the place. They're flashing their horses, running up and down the street. This goes on for a couple of weeks that they're there, right?
No.
But it's one big weekend when it really all happens, right?
Yeah.
But they're kind of coming in and out during that time. What's it like without them there?
Well, there are some of them still here. I mean, some have turned up, even though Billy Walsh, the popularly called head gypsy or king of the gypsies, he put a word out saying that it was cancelled for all the reasons, and some have still turned up. Not that many, and it hasn't caused a great problem. There'd been about 100 or so down on the sands, a few horses, but not very many. I don't think it's caused that much of a disruption. But I think what that has highlighted is that there were already tensions within the folk in Appleby because some pubs and shops would greatly benefit, and charities as well greatly benefit from all these people coming. And of course, they haven't come this time in any significant numbers, which has really had a dramatic effect on their income and that kind of thing. But the other people sort of say, "Oh, thank goodness they haven't come this year. They've got to keep away." And so the small number who have come, those who are very anti the horse fair, have been quite vocal about how dare they come. It's terrible. They're going to spread the virus and all this kind of thing. It's an interesting time. And I just imagine that when this is all over, probably next year, it will just pick up. But it certainly has shown again the tensions between the people who feel very relaxed about having the horse fair there, and those who just don't want it at all.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we were actually planning on possibly going up and camping next to Billy's caravan up on the hill this year, and spending time there and being with them. Of course, that hasn't had a chance to happen.
Yeah.
So I've got about, I'm just going to, if I interrupted a weird point, it's because I actually can't hear what you're saying right now. I've got about a 10-second delay in what I'm hearing since the studio is not working for me. So when you finish something, give me like a, I'm done, to you, something like that, make a signal. That'll help me. One of the things I do want to hear from you is how you feel about American politics, social life, when you're looking at it from the UK. I'm asking this question because there's a particular theory that I quite enjoy that comes from Mikhail Bakhtin, who's my favorite philosopher, linguist, this crazy Russian guy who came up with the idea of carnival as revolution, or carnivalesque was a theory he propounded. I absolutely love. But he made the observation that he believes that a lot of times people understand us better than we understand ourselves.
Right.
There are things that another will see about us that we don't get because of our myopic view of ourselves. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know that that's, I wouldn't say that that's always true, because some people are self-reflective enough that they can understand their own position, but I think this particularly is true for things like nations. I think cultures are that way too, where a culture outside views a culture from a distance and sees certain things about it that we as Americans don't see for ourselves, but others see about us. What is it you're seeing right now between American responses to COVID-19 and now the Black Lives Matters protests, the response approving and disapproving of the president? What are you seeing about us as Americans from a distance there?
It's massive, isn't it? I mean, starting with the president. From the word go, I've had quite a kind of like a reaction to him. It's just something about the way he comes over, I find quite alarming. And so I've struggled. I know that not everybody obviously voted for him, and not everybody would vote for him now. But I've struggled to see how he even got into town in the first place. And given his background, what we know about him before he was president, and then obviously the way he's behaved since, and I kind of really struggle with his response to both coronavirus and the Black Lives Matter stuff. That he always thinks big. Well, I think if I heard him say at one point that he is the president, and therefore he has the power to sort coronavirus out. And my thought about that was, well, the coronavirus doesn't know you're the president. No, I mean it doesn't really work like that. And certainly some of the belligerence over his way of speaking to the governors about the police. You've got to dominate the streets. Seems to go totally against the way the ethos of our police force here. I mean, obviously there are some policemen here who will overstep the line and all the rest of it. But generally, the emphasis in the UK on the police is that they are trained to de-escalate rather than escalate violence, and that generally that approach works. And we've had a lot of protests in Britain over the last weekend.
About the George Floyd thing.
About George, and about just racism in general, because we have racism here as well.
Yeah.
But apart from an incident at the end of the day in London on Saturday, when there was a bit of people throwing plastic bottles at police and horses, and there was a policewoman.
The horse bolted and she hit a traffic light and was knocked off the horse.
Yeah. So apart from that, and the toppling of a statue of a slave trader, there hasn't been, and they've all been peaceful, completely peaceful.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that is the way the police have handled it, actually.
Yeah.
Because I think, yes, there will have been a criminal element within the protests, the riots that you had. But I think when people face aggression from the police, they're more likely to react with aggression.
I mean, on the toppling of the statue, it was actually in my home city of Bristol. I was born just south of Bristol in the West Country of England. And it was a guy called Edward Colston, who was a slave trader, made a lot of money doing that. Now, in his later life, he did give a lot of that money away, very philanthropic and that kind of thing. So that was kind of, but there was always this there was this statue to him, and he was known as a slave trader. Bristol was known as a slave port. Mm-hmm. It made all its money, it had all its power, came through the slave trade, through sugar and tobacco and things like that. And people have been saying, we want to get rid of the statue. It's just not on. They've been doing it for decades, and then eventually. Again, it was towards the end of the demonstration, a very, very peaceful demonstration. Towards the end of it, predominantly white people, interestingly, put a rope around it, pulled it off the plinth, and then they rolled it all the way down to the docks in Bristol and threw it in the sea as like a symbolic statement of this man made his money on the slave trade, where slaves, if they were ill or they died, were thrown into the sea as they're being transported. And so there was that kind of poetic, historic kind of moment of that, and yes, it was criminal damage, etc. But the police came under a lot of fire, and they said, people were saying, "Why didn't you stop them doing it? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that?" And the police guy said, "Well, look," he said, "we just looked at it operationally. We thought about numbers of police we had available, and we just thought if we intervene, this is going to be a big public order problem, and it's going to escalate everything, and people are going to get hurt." And so we didn't. We just took the call and thought, well, we'll deal with it later. We've got the cameras, we've got CCTV, we'll find out. Although, let's face it, everyone who's gone on the protest, they've been told you've got to wear a mask. So that doesn't really do a lot of good, but there you go. Anyway, so, but it was that restraint, and I think a lot of restraint has been shown by the police over here. Whereas, I've got to say that when Mr. Trump said things, "I'm going to go for a walk and hold up a Bible," that was just, I looked at, I could not believe it. I mean, it was just insanity. Now, I have actually defended him in the past, particularly over the injecting the bleach thing that went up in all the press. It was the one briefing that I watched, a presidential coronavirus briefing. I mean, I was staggered by the fact he carried on talking for only 2 hours, because our coronavirus briefing, they talk for 10 minutes, have a bit of a a discussion with journalists, and after half an hour it's over. So this seemed to go on for days, this briefing. But he was just like speaking out loud. Now maybe there's thinking and speaking. Now maybe if you're the president, you shouldn't do that so much. You're just thinking through speaking. You should think first and then think about what your words might do. Maybe that's important. But I thought it wasn't as bad as everybody was making out. But that trip across to that church was insane. Apart from it being, idolic. There was idolatry. There was everything about it was. I can't put it into words.
Tear gassing people to
or pepper bombing or whatever it was they used. It wasn't really tear gas. Oh well, whoopie-doo. It was just the most insane thing to do. I can't think of anything more inflammatory. But I think this is the issue with Mr. Trump, is it plays precisely to his base and the people who voted for him and the people that he wants to vote for him again. I'm a strong man, the NRA, I'm a strong man. And for some reason, I couldn't understand it as well. In that speech that he gave beforehand, he said, and it's all about, protecting people, the rule of law, and protecting, your rights, especially Second Amendment rights. And I thought,
what's that got to do with?
What's that got to do with this? What First Amendment right is about protest. So what are you going on about the Second Amendment right, which were really inciting people to go and shoot them? I mean, it was just bizarre. So no, I think over in this country, I think there is a minority that think Mr. Trump is good and he's doing a good thing. But most people look, this is fairly right-wing friends that I've got as well. Just look at him, and they're just bemused as to how he's still there. I mean, it just is the weirdest thing. Yeah, I'll stop now. I'll get off my little pony and.
We can't hear you. Can't hear you.
How about now? Okay.
Yeah, right.
So I've been listening to this with its 10 or 12 second delay, whatever it was, and it was absolutely hilarious and fun, but my laughing had to be delayed. It's like the guy who didn't get the joke until he got home. So anyway, what I'll do is just kind of close with those thoughts. So we talked a little bit about Appleby Hrose Fair. We talked about what it looks like, what America looks like from the perspective of you sitting in Penrith, Cumbria, England, and what lockdown has been like, and particularly noteworthy was some of your thoughts about ministry and interactivity and how that seems to be blossoming a little bit, despite the fact we can't sit face to face with one another. So anyway, it's hard to do a 10-second delayed dialogue. That's almost impossible. So do a little kind of like, hey, thanks for watching us. This is who we are. If you want to let anybody know, if there's any way you want to connect with them online, give them that information, and then give me that cut off thing again, so I know you're done. To you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what we're going to say? Kristy and Dan Pattimore in was a little place called Kirbythorpe near Penrith.
Just outside Appleby, 5 miles outside Appleby. It's been great to share this time with Phil as well. It's always good fun. And it'd be great as well when you're travelling again and you're back in this country, Phil. You've got to come up here again, and we can restart the international no rules chess season and kick it off again. That'd be really, really good.
Yeah.
If you want to connect with us, if you go onto Facebook and search for either Kristy Pattimore or Dan Pattimore or Organic, that is the sort of the Facebook group that we use for a lot of the stuff that we do. it'd be great to connect and chat with people and hear what folk who are not in the UK actually think about the UK's response to coronavirus and everything as well, because it's very easy for us to be critical of other people, but we don't see what other people think about us either. Don't want to chat with it as well.
Yeah, and one of the beauties I think about everything going online, which isn't perfect by any means, but is that it's just as easy for us to talk to Phil in California as it is to our friends in the village.
Yeah.
So actually, international calls very welcome, and
yeah, absolutely.
It'd be good to hear from you.
Okay.
Well, it's been great. Thank you, Phil.
Okay, so that's been it with Dan and Kristy Pattimore from Penrith in Northern England, and this has been the Wild Theology Podcast. I'm Phil Wyman. You can find me here, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, where you can both watch me and President Trump as he tweets his 200 tweets a day. That actually was a record that happened this last Friday.
Oh, wow.
200 tweets or retweets in one day. That's not what I voted for. Anyway, and you can also find me on patreon.com/Phil Wyman. And hey, it's been great hanging out with you guys. Sorry we lost sound to one another, or at least, funny technical difficulties, but hey, that's what happened. So this is signing out with Wild Theology.
Okay, bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.